one with the other. How many of you, I know it's going to be very few, how many of you saw Malcolm X, the movie? 1, 2, 3, 4. Very few of you. I went to see it. One of the reasons that I went to see it is because Denzel Washington, of course, is a hottie. But the other reason I went to see it was because I went to school right across the street from the Audubon Ballroom. Within a year or two of his assassination. There's a scene in the film where Denzel Washington as Malcolm X stands in front of the courthouse, where he and his Muslim brothers in the hundreds have gathered to stand before the courthouse and call for justice for 2 people who have been arrested and are not being allowed to see or consult with a lawyer. And he is standing in front of the courthouse simply to ask that these 2 people who have been arrested be given what is their right to see a lawyer. And he's being ignored, essentially. And as he stands out on the street, there is this moment where all of the men are lined up in the street, and Denzel Washington makes one gesture, just one. He raises his hand like this, and all of the hundreds of men in one motion have their feet together, stand at attention, and their heads turn and look at Malcolm X. It is one of the most dramatic pieces of film I have ever seen in my entire life. The sound that accompanies this move is incredible. The sound of this one motion of these men is incredible. And the effect is exactly what he wants. It's not a violent effect. It is simply, we are of one mind. We are of one attitude. We are of one common purpose. Our one mind, our one attitude, our one common purpose is to see that justice is done for these 2 men. Paul's prescription for us is to be of that one kind of mind, that one kind of attitude, that one common purpose. Let me give you an example, another example. Look at things through different eyes. You know, in this day and age, a lot of people are doing that get into your face, I have rights stuff. You know, have you ever had somebody do that to you? You know, it's that kind of stance. All right. How many times have I given that little lecture to you on please don't ever go up to somebody in the sanctuary who's sitting in your seat and ask them to move. If you take Paul's prescription and you look at that through different eyes, through new eyes, then you will say, please, have this seat, and 10 times more. You will get up immediately and say, let me help you sit down. Not with sarcasm, not passive-aggressive. Yes, of course. The eyes of the prescription of Paul is to think in terms of being like the Christ and consider yourself. Consider that person as something more than yourself. To humble yourself and say, this isn't about my ego. This isn't about how well I'm being treated or not being treated. That's not what the issue is here. The issue is, my ego to follow the prescription of love. Paul says, "Therefore, my beloved, just as you have always obeyed me, not only in my presence, but much more now in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who is at work in you, enabling you both to will and to work for his good pleasure." Do you remember gentlemen of days gone by? When people used to ride on a bus, a woman would get on a bus, and a gentleman would give up his seat on the bus so that she could sit down. Does anybody remember those days? When a man would open the door for a woman to let her go through. When basic manners were you'd always put your napkin in your lap and you would never chew with your mouth open. When a teacher would come into the room and every student would stand up. When I was on the commission on the ministry for the regional church, one of the things that I asked my colleagues to do, we were the ordaining commission. Anybody who came in to have an interview with us was coming in for final interviews to be ordained. And there was this thing, because I remember when I was interviewed to be ordained, and I walked into the room, and everybody's sitting around this table, kind of like a parole board. And I asked them, when I became a member of the commission, I asked them, I said, what kind of a message do you want to give the candidates? Is the message that you want to give the candidates that they are coming in to sit with the parole board, or that they are welcome? Then if it's to welcome them, then stand up when they walk into the room and offer them your hand of welcome and make them feel as though you want them to be here. Don't sit there with your hands folded or drumming on the table. The message that you send by your body language is as much a message of what's in your head. John Wesley felt that you and I were capable of moving on through this life toward Christian perfection if we lived by the greatest commandment of all, to love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your mind and all of your strength, and your neighbor as yourself. He gave it to us fairly easily, a way for us to remember and hang on to it, to carry it with us every day. The 3 simple rules. And I think maybe he got his theology of Christian perfection from reading this particular portion of the letter to the Philippians. Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Do no harm. Do all the good you can. And stay in love with God. Take the prescription of Paul. Always count others better than yourselves. And when somebody says you're sitting in my seat, say you're absolutely right.